October is here, which means the NBA season is about to begin. Rapid fire style, this is every team's storyline for the new NBA season. The Atlanta Hawks. The DeJounte Murray trade worked exactly how we all thought it would. Two ball-dominant point guards that can't really make their teammates better? Who would have thought Murray would be gone in just 2 years? We'll break down Murray's new home in a minute here, because the real story is Zachary Richarchet, this year's #1 pick. The French teen was drafted on basically potential alone, so most of this season will be spent developing him into a future star. For the Hawks, the 2024-25 season almost doesn't matter. They'll win 35 games and fall short of the playoffs, but we'll keep a close eye on how Richarchet looks for future years. The next team knows a thing or two about developing young talent. How did the Boston Celtics have the most dominant playoff run in years, while still managing to enter the season with a chip on their shoulder? Between every East team's injury struggles in the playoffs, to Finals MVP Jaylen Brown being left off the Olympic roster, to Jason Tatum barely playing with Team USA, the best team from last season still feels like they have something to prove. With KP out for at least the first third of the season and probably more, their regular season record might be disappointing. But they're also the favorites to win the finals, and they will become the first team to repeat in 6 years. You heard it here. If they do, they'll probably win more games in the playoffs than this team will all season. Remember when KD, Kyrie, and Harden were on the Nets? Yeah, that was a long time ago. After trading away Mikal Bridges, they basically threw up the white flag. They're not playing for 2025 anymore. They're setting themselves up for the future. Expect full tank mode for Cooper Flag. They would be lucky to win 20 games, though honestly, they probably don't want to. But hey, Ben Simmons will be back, and that means absolutely nothing, right? Do you think this is the year Simmons is finally relevant again? Or can we admit he's a straight up bust? Meanwhile, the next team might have the same record without even trying to tank. Charlotte's LaMelo Ball might be one of the most exciting young stars in the league, but it's time for that to translate into some sort of success. The Hornets haven't even been in playoff contention in his 4 years, and he missed more than half of the last 2 seasons. Things are grim in Charlotte, though Brandon Miller was a bright spot as his rookie year ended. But they have little hope, an all too familiar feeling for this franchise. Expect 30 wins and whispers of an offseason LaMelo trade. But will the next team finally move on from their inefficient semi-star? DeMar DeRozan sparked some life into a seemingly dead franchise a few years back, but he officially moved on from the Chicago Bulls this summer. Who's next? Nikola Vucevic is too poor defensively in this center market. Zach LaVine has routinely proven that teams are better when they stay away. They'll sell tickets, as will Josh Giddey, who came in a trade for defensive ace Alex Caruso. The Bulls didn't need a defensive specialist, they needed on-ball guys like Giddey, who might be all-star caliber if everything breaks right. Is that in the cards? Could Giddey win Most Improved Player? More importantly, is Lonzo Ball finally coming back? Right as his career hit stride, it all fell apart. Is this the year we see what we were finally promised alongside a talented roster? Maybe, but it's more likely the Bulls will find themselves with another potential trade piece as they toil away in mediocrity. The next team has the same issue, but with far higher stakes. The Cleveland Cavaliers just gave Donovan Mitchell an extension, which nobody saw coming. The Mitchell trade rumors have been around since he came to the Cavs, and their odd roster makeup isn't helping anything. 2 undersized, bad defensive guards, 2 non-scoring threats in the front court, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen all were too good to let go for nothing, but they just don't work together. Odds are they stay put and the Cavs are fine being perennial playoff teams with little to no real title chances. But that's what we said about the next team, and they proved us all wrong. Can the Dallas Mavericks win the title on the strength of Luka Doncic? The Kyrie piece worked better than anyone imagined last year, mostly because it was controversy-free. But what if controversy does come? That's the biggest thing that can derail this team. Their second superstar sowing chaos and toxicity. On the court, Derek Lively will make a sophomore jump, and the Mavs improved their wing spots, including bringing along 4-time champ Klay Thompson. The finals run last year was a mix of perfect timing, godly performances by Luka, and a little bit of luck. The West is going to be tough, and they won't make it back. But this is the year, finally, that Luka wins MVP. Mostly because they're just tired of voting for this guy. Nikola Jokic is still the best player in the world, and the Olympics proved that. But is it good enough to drag a bad Denver Nuggets roster back to the finals? After their 2023 title, they slowly lost piece after piece, and suddenly, they have no bench, following the KCP departure. On top of that, Jamal Murray looked bad at times during last year's playoffs, and his run with Team Canada didn't inspire hope. No team with Nikola Jokic is ever far from title contenders, but it would take a huge effort. Well, no team except maybe this one. The Detroit Pistons have been in the gutter for over a decade. When does it end for a fairly storied franchise? None of their picks, signings, or trades in the last 5 years have been bad on the surface, but none of them have worked out either. It seems like Cade Cunningham might be one of those picks. They didn't make any huge moves this offseason, signing a few shooting wings and Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Malik Beasley. Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, and rookie Ron Holland need to develop quickly into bona fide second stars if the Pistons have a chance, and odds are they won't. This prediction takes a bit of luck, but the Pistons get the number 1 pick in the 2025 draft, pick Cooper Flagg, and finally right this ship. On the opposite side of the spectrum over the last decade, the Golden State Warriors have a lot of hard decisions to make. Draymond Green is past his prime, that is clear, and his behavior is often wrecking whatever momentum the Warriors build up. They moved on from Klay. Is Dre next? Steph Curry is still a top player that you want in a playoff series, but over 82 games, can he hold up? After missing on targets like Paul George and Lauri Markkanen, Jonathan Kuminga needs to make a huge leap this season if they want one more trophy in that case. But it's become painfully clear, the dynasty is over. Meanwhile, their old rival is trying to prove they're a dynasty in the making. The Houston Rockets were last year's big shocker. Şengün and Jalen Green took the leap we had all hoped, and they might have drafted the Rookie of the Year in Reed Sheppard. At this point, any form of success is ahead of schedule. The Rockets win 38 games and inch toward playoff contention, but in a loaded West, they don't make a ton of noise. The same could be said for the next team last year, but can they make that second leap? Sure, the Indiana Pacers conference finals appearance may have been fluky, but they still did it. Tyrese Halliburton proved that he can at least look like a top-tier point guard for a few weeks at a time. Pascal Siakam looks like the perfect forward to play alongside him. The Pacers will finish as a top 5 seed in the East with 47 wins, if Hallie can stay healthy. This year will also start to prove if this squad can make a deep run in the playoffs, or if last year was indeed a fluke. But for this next team, the window is closed. It's not like Paul George was the best player on the Los Angeles Clippers, but they were a team that relied on star power. Kawhi can look like a top 5 player on individual nights, but he cannot consistently play 60 games a year. The team looked phenomenal after the Harden trade last year, but that feels like centuries ago. This is the most room temperature prediction of all time. The Clippers will struggle, and Harden will ask for a trade. Again, maybe he can join the other LA team, but the Lakers are probably too smart for that. Anyway, LeBron doesn't seem to care about contention anymore. He cares about spending time with his son on the court. The Lakers have zero chance of winning another finals as currently constructed, but it'll be great for drama. They're gonna win 41 games, dominate one game in the play-in, and then get swept in the first round. But Bronny's gonna throw his dad an alley-oop, and that will dominate news cycles. Will their playoff loss come at the hands of another up-and-comer, like the Memphis Grizzlies? Because last time Ja Morant was healthy and not suspended, he was losing to LeBron's Lakers in the playoffs. They thrived in a loaded West only a few short years ago, and Jaren Jackson has developed into a solid scorer while Ja was on a sabbatical. GG Jackson blossomed last year in a way nobody expected, but let's not kid ourselves. Their season depends fully on their superstar, Ja Morant. He comes back in full force with zero controversy, and they're gonna win 52 games, period. What about another team that fell apart last year? The Miami Heat had their underdog run, and it's probably over. People have said that before, and they were proven wrong, but Jimmy Butler is getting up there in age. And honestly, it's hard to see him sticking with the Heat for more than one more year. You can pencil him in to miss 30 games, and have we seen enough from Bam Adebayo to think he can lead them once Jimmy is no longer him? If Jaime Jaquez makes the leap like it looks like he should, they might get back into contention. But for now, they're 40 wins and a play-in loss. Sorry, but it's over. Is that true for this team too? Because the Milwaukee Bucks were the official winner of the 2024 Team from Hell. New coach fired at midseason. Damian Lillard cost them their defensive menace in Drew Holiday, then didn't look like the star they thought he was. And then Giannis missed time in the playoffs. Again. Doc Rivers is a great coach, and Giannis is a top 20 guy ever in his prime. So you can't really count them out, but after making no moves to fix their broken defense, they are gonna be lucky to make it past the second round. And if that happens, it's officially panic time in Milwaukee. But no moves is better than bad moves. And that might be what the Timberwolves just did. They parted ways with Karl Anthony Towns, one of the key pieces in their Jokic breaker defense, for Julius Randle, a worse player who fits worse, needs the ball more, and has a worse attitude. What could go wrong? Dante DiVincenzo gives them some nice 3-and-D depth, but this was a clear looking toward the future move, breaking away from that huge Cat contract for Julius on a 1-year deal. Still, Anthony Edwards makes the leap we thought he would. First team All-NBA for Ant, 52 wins in a conference finals appearance. You know who could have really used Cat? The New Orleans Pelicans, who need a couple of 3-for-1 trades to upgrade their roster. They have far too many decent players and only one really good one. And now with Valanciunas gone, they have no size. The DeJounte Murray move frees Zion up to have fewer on-ball responsibilities, but they need to figure out how to get rid of Brandon Ingram to clear up Herb Jones and Trey Murphy minutes. It feels like a 46-win team that gets wrecked in the playoffs, and that's assuming Zion is missing half the season. After all, he hasn't been healthy yet. Why would he make that leap now? Cat would have been the perfect fit, but unfortunately, he went to the New York Knicks. Sorry to break up the Nova Knicks, but this is a great move for a team who suddenly has title aspirations. Now, Cat has played with Tibbs before and it went badly, but we can assume he's grown since then, right? Last year was revolutionary for Cat's growth and acceptance as a second banana, and the pick and pop potential with Jalen is insane. This was a great move by a team that lost Hartenstein in the offseason and didn't seem to expect Mitchell Robinson to come back. 58 wins, top in the East, conference finals appearance. Can Hartenstein's team go even higher? The OKC Thunder did everything right, built from the ground up with a top 5 player in SGA, flanking him with 2 potential superstars in Chet and Jalen Williams. They added some size in Hartenstein and got rid of Giddey, who is a solid player but just redundant. They might not beat last year's win total, but now it's finals or bust for this up-and-coming team. We predict they are going to reach the finals, losing to the Celtics. Can the East's up-and-comers match that? The Orlando Magic are criminally under-talked about. Paolo Banchero has developed into a top 20 guy, and he might fight for second-team All-NBA this year. Franz's shooting woes will surely end this season. Bad streaks happen, right? Last year was much more promising for Jalen Suggs, who has suddenly become the best young defensive guard in the league. This is the Magic's semi-breakout year, going for 51 wins and second in the East. Probably not a lot of noise in the playoffs, but it's still early. Of course, you can only say that for so long before you become the Philadelphia 76ers. With Joel Embiid, they are continuously worse in the playoffs. Whether it's because his scoring severely drops every year in April, or because he's missing the first round with an injury, it's clear that they will not reach the finals with Embiid as their best player unless there is a drastic change. Paul George is not that drastic change. Both superstars will miss a lot of time, partly because that's their nature, partly because they'll be on ice until the postseason. And when the postseason comes, they'll be bounced early. Is 42 wins and a first-round exit in store for this team, or is that just mean to say? The same could be said for the Phoenix Suns, who are polar opposites of the Thunder. This is not how you build a team. We've said it before, but jamming stars together in a system where they don't mesh never works, and it never has. And it won't for Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. Maybe they'll be healthy this season, which is doubtful. They might reach 50 wins, but they are no real threat in the playoffs. 2 scores going off can win you a round, but it can't win you 2. The Suns win 48 games in Kevin Durant's last full season in Phoenix, but at least they sort of have a chance. Unlike the Portland Trail Blazers, who are officially in capture the flag territory. Last year, Scoot Henderson was 939th out of 955 rookies in the 3-point era in terms of plus minus. Now that's a flawed stat, but that is really bad. For us and anyone who was high on Scoot last year, it's a little too early to say he's a bust, but it's way too early to call him good. Dom Ayton didn't really work out, but they don't care if he did. All the Blazers care about is developing Scoot and losing a lot of games for Cooper Flagg. This team knows about tanking for decades and never getting the right guy. But lucky for them, the Sacramento Kings are way past that phase. Signing DeMar DeRozan is a clear example of strength on strength. If you have 2 great offensive players, Fox and Sabonis, who also suck on defense, do you get a 3rd offensive star or a defensive menace? Offense it is. Along with Malik Monk and Keegan Murray, the Kings have a nice squad. Not title contention nice, but they might be able to take a chunk out of the loaded West. 45 wins and an early exit, but it's gonna be fun to watch. Speaking of fun to watch, get ready, because Wemby has a point guard. Jeremy Sohan playing point guard was an insane part of a bonkers Spurs season last year, but Wemby still managed to make the San Antonio Spurs interesting. He has a legit shot at MVP already. With Chris Paul, the point god, on his team, he's at least a second-team All-NBA guy. Can they be competitive right away? Our take, they do not tank for Flagg. They fight for the playoffs, falling just a bit short at 38 wins. After all, luring free agents to play with Wemby is far more effective than trying to get the #1 pick. Just ask the next team who won a title with that mentality. The Toronto Raptors are 5 years removed from a title, but it feels like a lifetime, doesn't it? Scotty Barnes has officially made the transition from underrated young guy to potentially overrated all-star, but is the only bright spot on a bad team. RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley provide a nice foundation, but the team is cobbled together awkwardly with little end in sight. But all they care about now is developing Barnes and maybe playing capture the flag. They're gonna be lucky to win 30 games, while the next team will be trying desperately not to do that. How long can the Utah Jazz tank before they admit they have sort of a good roster? Lauri Markkanen turned into a legit top 20 guy after his trade, and Walker Kessler is the perfect center to pair him with. But the chance at Cooper Flagg is too enticing, and the idea of another decade of mediocrity is not worth it. So they'll tank, winning no more than 30 games, no matter how much Lauri tries to will them higher. But at least they have someone who cares about winning, while the Wizards are stuck with Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. It's hard to imagine the Wizards being worse than 15 games, which they hit last year, but there's no reason to assume this team can win 16. Malcolm Brogdon isn't much of an upgrade at point guard, considering his health concerns. Jonas Valanciunas is a competent 5, but not the type of guy who can turn a bad team good. This year rests on the shoulders of Jordan Poole, which means this season will be another disaster. Which of these predictions do you think was way off? Let us know in the comments, but probably the most anticipated event of this year is seeing LeBron take the floor with Bronny. Watch the NBA truth about the first father and son duo next. Listen to The Wrong Opinion, useless NBA trivia, and garbage rankings for more NBA content.